Hello everyone, Father Geary here out in our parking lot, looking very much forward to welcoming you back to Mass after weeks and weeks, 3 months of being away from public Masses together. And we begin public Masses this week with daily Mass on Thursday morning and then followed by our regular weekend schedule. I want to just walk us through what Mass is going to look like next week. And so it will start here in the parking lot. And from the time that you arrive, we ask that you keep physical distance between yourself and others who are not of your household. And that will be true from the time you get out of your car when you arrive, or if you arrive on foot, until the time that you leave the property. We really ask that you maintain that physical distance. So I'm going to take us over now to the area where we're going to celebrate Mass outside. So I want to show you what that's going to look like, and then we'll move to just outside the church, and then we'll move inside the church. So this is where we will be as you enter for the outdoor Mass, which will be at 11:30 on Sunday. And I wanted to just give you a sense of where that is. So this is the gate at the back of the church parking lot, the entrance to the school area. So as you arrive next Sunday for the outdoor Mass at 11:30, you'll be met by hospitality ministers. The first thing they're going to do is ask you a series of questions that are required by the state. And here are the questions just so you know what they are. Have you traveled internationally in the last 14 days? In the last 14 days, have you been exposed to a person with suspected or confirmed COVID-19 without the correct PPE, the personal protective equipment? Have you had in the last 14 days a temperature of at least 100 degrees? Have you in the last 14 days had a new or increased shortness of breath or difficulty breathing? Have you in the last 14 days had a new cough? And in the last 14 days, have you had at least two of the following symptoms together? Chills, muscle pain, headache, sore throat, or new loss of taste or smell? So those are 6 questions that will be asked of every person as you arrive. If the answer to any of those is yes, we're going to ask you to not join us for Mass on that particular day, because that is a symptom of COVID-19. It's very possible, probable maybe, that you don't have COVID-19. But we want to, out of just great caution, we're asked to ask those 6 questions. So those are the questions that you'll be asked. Your name will be checked off. You will have signed up either online or by calling 360-823-2843. Those are the 2 ways that you can sign up for Mass. And I should say that because we're limited to 100 people out here, and we're limited to 50 people in the church, that not everybody is probably going to be able to go to Mass every Sunday. And in fact, we're going to monitor that to make sure that it's fair. So that if you sign up and are able to go to Mass this weekend, for example, we ask you not to sign up the following weekend until we let you know that, yes, there is space available. We'll also monitor that. So if you do sign up and you went to Mass last week, we won't be able to put you in a spot for this week unless there's an opening. So now I want to go over to where we will celebrate Mass outdoors, just to give you a sense of what that space will look like. Now we're in the covered play area where we will have our outdoor Masses. And I'm standing just in front of where the altar platform is. And those of you who celebrated Mass in Marian Hall with us back in November, when we were replacing the lights in the church, same altar we'll have out here. The advantage of this covered area is that even if the weather is not great, we'll be able to celebrate Mass outside. So we can accommodate up to 100 people here. and you will see marks on the ground that have the 6 feet in between them. We ask you if you want to sit, unless you want to sit on the ground, that you'll have to bring your own chair and take that with you when you leave. The communion procedure will be the same as it is in the church. And so I'm going to demonstrate that once we get into the church. But just know that what I describe in the church will be the same out here when we're celebrating Mass outside. Also, know that when you do arrive, after answering those 6 questions, your name is checked off of the registration list. You'll also be asked to sanitize your hands, and then from the time you get out of your car to have your face covering on. Okay, so now we're going to go over just to the outside of the church to show you what the setup is outside and how people will welcome you there. So we'll see you in a minute. Okay, we're here in front of the church, and now I want to describe what it's going to be like when you come to Mass for the liturgies inside the church. So first of all, you'll see blue marks on the ground, both here right in front of the doors and then leading all the way out to the parking lot. Those marks are there so that we can maintain physical distance, as there may be a line to get in, because all of those questions, all of the sanitizing of the hands, assuring that everybody's wearing a face covering, all of that will happen at the front doors of the church. And so just wanted you to be aware that this is the only entrance for Mass. We wanted to limit that. And then all the exits will be available at the end of Mass, and I'll say more about that when we get inside of the church. But this is the only entrance to the church, and you will come here keeping physical distance as we prepare to go into the church. All right, so once you get into the church, remember what will have happened before that is your name will have been checked off the registration list. You will have gone through the screening questions, and then you will come forward and you will sanitize your hands, and then folks will escort you to your seats. That's really important because we know the number of households that are coming, and maybe there's 5 people, they say, in their household. Well, they'll sit together, and so it's going to be important that the ushers be able to help you to your seat. So you'll sanitize your hands, and then a hospitality minister will take you to your seats. So now we're going to go inside of the church, and I'll show you what the procedures for Mass will be. Okay, now we're in the church. Again, excited to welcome you back to this space where we've been celebrating with just a handful of people for the live stream Mass, and now we're going to be able to welcome 50 people into the church space here to celebrate the liturgies. And just a reminder, the Masses inside here in the church will be Saturday Vigil Mass at 5 p.m., the 9 a.m. Mass next Sunday, and the 5 p.m. Mass next Sunday evening. Remember, the 11:30 is going to be out on the covered play area. We also are going to start at the 8:30 daily Mass on Thursday as a sort of a trial run through for all of us. So that will be on the sign-up sheet as well for you. I wanted to just give you a sense of what the seating is going to look like. So we want to try to limit the seating and also have social distancing. The social distancing is required. The limiting of where we sit in the church is because we have to sanitize those areas after every Mass. And so the less area in the church that we have to sanitize, the easier and the quicker it will be for us. And so you'll see we're going to seat in these 2 center sections, starting here in these pews. So we won't have any seating in the chairs. The reason for that is the distance that needs to be maintained especially if we have a cantor that's singing the psalm or singing the communion antiphon or the entrance antiphon. There has to be at least 30 feet from the cantor to the assembly. And so that's why you'll see these sections for now are blocked off here. So this is where we will seat in the beginning, and if we fill this section up that can take 30 individuals. Now, obviously, if a family comes together, those living in the same household, they won't have to sit 6 feet apart. So we may have enough room to fill this section with 50 people. And if that's true, that's the only seating that we'll have. If we have to do overflow seating, it will be in this section. For those of you who are Eucharistic ministers, you would know this section is section 4. And then if we fill that up also on this side, which again, you would know this as section 7 over there by the soundboard. So that's the idea for seating, both for daily Mass and for Sunday Mass. Now I'm going to describe what Mass will be like for us when we come back this week. All right, now I would like to just walk us through the liturgy. And the first thing for us to know is that part of the information that we've gained about how the virus spreads is that a group of people in an enclosed space for a long period of time. And so part of the sacrifice we're going to have to make for the sacred liturgy is to reduce the things that we can in the liturgy while still remaining prayerful. And so we'll pray a shorter Eucharistic prayer. The homily will be much shorter. We will say all of the Mass parts, because the other thing we know about this virus is that the easiest way for it to get transmitted is through singing, because we project so much when we sing. So there will be no assembly singing. That's a huge sacrifice and a huge loss for us. It's one of those things that we have to give up to be able to come back together for Mass. So those are big things that you're going to notice, is that we're going to speak all of the Mass parts, and that we will move through the liturgy fairly quickly. You will also notice that unless we have a deacon, I will be the only one on the altar platform. That's to achieve two things: to make sure that we keep our social distancing. So the guidelines say that I have to be 12 feet from anybody else except during communion, and we're going to walk through that in a moment. And it also allows more of you to be able to come to Mass, because I'm counted and all the liturgical ministers are counted in that 50 maximum for Mass. So it's a way for us to make sure we maximize the number of people that can come to liturgy. So, so shorter liturgy, shorter preaching, which will be good news to some of you, and also no singing. So those are the things that to know, to be prepared for when you come to Mass. But the good news is that we'll be able to be together and we'll celebrate the Eucharist together. One major change in the liturgy is that communion, I will receive communion during Mass, but no one else will. We will distribute communion, I will distribute communion at the end of Mass. And that's really for safety purposes. And I want to walk through that with you now. So now I want to describe what the end of Mass is going to look like, and this will be both here in the church and outside. So there will be the final blessing. As I said, I will be the only one that will receive communion during Mass. I will do the prayer after communion. We will do the final blessing and the dismissal. Then I will remove my outer garment called a chasuble. I will sanitize my hands. I will put on my mask, and this is the reason that we're doing communion after Mass, is so that I can put a mask on. So I'm going to put my mask on, and then when I'm in place, the ushers will begin inviting people to come to communion, and Larry is going to demonstrate what that will look like. So he's going to come forward. He's going to bow at the last cross so that he maintains that distance. Then he will approach me with hands extended and his hand out so that I can simply drop the host on his hand. Then he will move to the side. He will remove his mask and he will receive communion. And then the next person will come forward. Larry is going to exit the closest exit he can. So maybe he'll go out the back, maybe he'll go to that side door. Completely up to you, but the point is to exit the church immediately after you receive communion. I hope that's clear. Again, I hope it's also a way for us to both keep safe, but also to be able to make sure that we are receiving communion as reverently as we possibly can. Just a reminder that we're not able at this time to offer anyone the option of receiving communion on the tongue. You have to receive communion in the hand. And just to review, the bow happens at this last cross, so to keep that distance between yourself and the priest. So the bow happens here. And then to extend your hands as far as you can, and therefore stay as far away from the priest. This sounds crazy, I know. This is not what we want to do typically in liturgy, but this is to keep us safe. So we want to extend our hands as far as we can, making sure that the hand that we are going to receive communion on, as Larry demonstrated, is flat, so I can simply drop the host into your hand. If I touch your hand, if we have contact, then before I give the next person communion, I'm going to take the ciborium, I'm going to set it down, and I will sanitize my hands again. So again, that's just for the abundance of caution that we don't spread this virus. If we have person-to-person contact, also encourage you as you leave to also sanitize your hands. Well, those are the procedures. That's what you should expect when you come back to Mass starting this week. Again, I'm very excited to welcome you back. See you this week.